Hey everybody, and welcome back to Amanda Marie NP, where today I'm going to be talking to you about the dreaded coding and billing. So if you're a nurse practitioner who is longing to start their very own private practice, but the coding and billing side has you a little perplexed, or maybe you have just launched a new private practice and you really just need a little bit of a brush up, I'm going to go into my computer right now and I'm going to show you guys a slide presentation that I made. I'm going to help you to understand the basics, just the really important key aspects to medical coding and billing. And I have something for you at the very end of this video, so stay tuned. All right, let's jump right in to my computer and let's make our brain bigger. Okay, my name again is Amanda Saunders. I'm a double board certified family and mental health nurse practitioner. I have grown my very own private practice from 0 to 7 figures, and my passion truly is helping others do the exact same. So that is who I am and why I have the authority and the knowledge to speak to you on this subject. So without wasting time, medical coding and billing 101. These are going to be the basics of what you need to know in order to get started making money in your very own nurse practitioner business. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and take a quick moment to do that. And we're going to jump right in to this information. And I want you to know that there's going to be a link you can click in the description to work with me, as well as to get some information from the notes today. So medical coding and billing. These are the critical aspects of running a successful healthcare practice, especially for nurse practitioners who manage their own practices. So we're going to talk about some basics that every nurse practitioner should know when doing medical coding and billing, because again, this is not exactly what we were trained to do unless you have that credentialing, that education in your background. So right off the top, I want you to know that nurse practitioners billing under your own NPI, your own credentials, and your own tax ID number, you are automatically going to make less money than a physician who renders this exact same service. That is one of the reasons why coding and billing correctly and done in the right way is crucial, because you want to capture and you want to generate the revenue, and you want to make sure that you're actually getting the revenue that you're taking the time to generate. Okay, so we start with an ICD-10 code. So that seems kind of obvious, but let's talk about it. An ICD-10 code stands for the International Classification of Diseases. We're now on the 10th revision. This is a standardized system that was created by the World Health Organization to classify and code diseases, medical conditions, symptoms, and other health-related issues. So why is this important? Basically, an ICD-10 code is what labels a condition, disease, or symptom as exactly what it is. It's a universal language so that the health insurance companies, the healthcare providers, hospitals, etc., everyone knows exactly what lingo you're using and the exact definition of the code. So all of your claims are going to start with an ICD-10 code first. After your ICD-10 code, you're going to have a CPT code. When billing, you will use a CPT code, which is called the current procedural terminology. Each CPT code provides detailed information about the type of service that was provided, allowing for accurate billing and reimbursement. CPT codes are your billing codes. These are must-know information. You learned ICD-10, you learned diagnosing in school, but now this is a totally different language that you have to master, and that's one of the things we're doing in today's video. Okay, so the third and very important next thing that we need to understand is adding a modifier. So modifiers give the payer, like Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, the different context about the service or the procedure that was rendered. It indicates that a service or procedure was altered but did not change its definition. So it clarifies maybe the location, the provider, the method of service delivery. It explains why a procedure might require special reimbursement considerations. And so at the end of this, I'm going to share with you some examples. So we have talked about all the things now that we need to bill, other than the very obvious things like an electronic health record system, like maybe even having a biller do this for you. But again, this education is specifically for those who are interested in learning how to bill insurance companies.
independently without using a service, because a lot of those companies charge you 7, 8, even more percent of every single bill that they send out the door or every single claim that goes out the door. So let's jump into the next piece. We are going to talk about common mistakes to avoid. So you do not want to up code, which means billing for more complex services than were provided. The next thing is you don't want to undercode. So failing to code for all services rendered leads to lost revenue. So we don't want to say we did more than we did, and we don't want to cut ourselves short and not claim everything that we did. So for example, if I see a patient and I bill out a 99213, which I'm going to educate you here in just a moment about that code, I don't want to just say 99213. If really I needed to use a modifier and then also add on an additional code for maybe a urine drug screen. Okay, so along with that comes the billing basics so that you can avoid errors. So first, let's talk about insurance credentialing. You have to ensure that you are credentialed with every single insurance company that you're going to have come into your practice. So if you want to see patients who have Anthem and Aetna and Humana, Medicaid, Medicare, etc., make sure that you're credentialed with them before you see their patients. It is a mess if you do not get credentialed with them and you render services and then you try to get paid. That is going to be one of the biggest issues that you're going to struggle with. So I recommend 10 on 10, do not do that. And on top of that, you want to avoid errors such as not being familiar with your fee schedule. So let's use the Department of Medicaid in the state that you live in for an example. You need to familiarize yourself with that payer-specific fee schedule so that you can avoid rendering services that you're not going to be reimbursed for because the code that you use is not on your fee schedule. Next is patient and financial responsibility. So you have to understand that it is first and foremost the patient's responsibility to understand what their co-pays are, their deductibles, if they have a co-insurance, how much those things are, etc. However, you need to make sure that you have policies in place for collecting these at the time of service, and make sure that when you submit your claims that they're clean, meaning you've, to the best of your ability, you are billing out the right CPT codes, using the right ICD-10 codes and the correct modifiers right from the beginning, because this is going to save you a lot of headache on the back end. So although it is the patient's responsibility to understand their insurance, I'm going to tell you right now, most of them do not. So you need to make sure you verify insurances. So there are coding and billing specifics for nurse practitioners that I want to make sure you understand. So if your collaborating physician works in your practice, which is sometimes rare, but if it does happen, you can do what's called incent to billing, which means that if your collaborating physician is in the building, you can bill out under their NPI for a higher reimbursement rate. And I 10 on 10 do recommend you do that, but only if specific criteria is met, i.e. them being in the office. Direct billing. So if you are billing under your own NPI, I want you to know right from the very beginning that you are only going to be reimbursed 85% of the allowable amount of the what's listed on the fee schedule. So make sure you know that. That's the reason why you want to capture all of the services that you provide to ensure that you are getting the maximum revenue possible while not overbilling. Okay, I want you to know that there are two main types of codes you're going to be billing out. You're going to be billing out new patient codes versus established patient codes. That is like the main two categories. New patients are ones that have never been seen in your practice, or ones that have not been seen in the practice in the last 3 years prior to the date of service. Okay, so these codes are called evaluation and management codes, or E&M codes. So here's the breakdown. When selecting the appropriate E&M code for a patient visit, there are a few key factors that I want you to consider. The time spent in the actual appointment, the complexity of the problem or problems that you're treating, and then any data that you reviewed, as well as the risk of your treatment decisions. These very, very key elements will help you to determine which code to use based on the updated E&M guidelines. Okay, so here we're looking at those two main patient categories of codes. We're looking at the new patient codes, which are the E&M. They start with 99201, and as you can see, progressively go down to 99205. Established patient E&M codes are 99211, and then they progressively go down to 99215. Each different code consists of different qualifying information that allow you to know which code to choose. And those things, again, are based on the amount of time spent and the complexity of your medical decision making, as well as the number of either chronic or acute medical conditions that you are managing or treating, and or any labs or imaging that you interpret in the appointment. Okay, so looking at the 99211 code, this is a code that is used for nurse-only visits where the patient does not actually need to see the physician or the nurse practitioner. And these typically require very little to no actual medical decision making. Again, they're not seeing a provider. They're minimal visits where no significant evaluation is concerned. Examples might include things like maybe rechecking a blood pressure or administering a vaccine. So something that your medical assistant and or nurse are able to deliver this service without you actually being present. So that is a 99211 code, and that is an E&M code for an established patient in your practice. The next E&M code we have is 99212. So this is for visits where the problem is straightforward. For instance, when a patient presents with a self-limited or minor issue like a cold, allergic rhinitis, a simple rash, a dermatitis, the time spent is usually between 10 to 19 minutes, and the complexity of your decision making is going to be pretty low. And minimal data, if any, will be reviewed during this type of appointment. The risk involved in the treatment decision is also low, and recommending over the counter medications or minor wound care would be the treatment plan that's developed as a result of a 99212 E&M code. So again, really helping you to understand the differences. Next, we have a 99213. If the visit lasts between 15 and 29 minutes and it addresses low complexity reasoning, so this code might be appropriate. It includes situations where the patient has a chronic stable condition like well-controlled diabetes, or maybe two chronic stable conditions. They might have stable hypertension and diabetes. And during the visit, you would typically review some data like maybe a A1C, some imaging results, and the risk level still remains low with a 99213 code. You might be making a tweak to a medication, a slight adjustment, or just monitoring those chronic conditions. But remember that medical decision making complexity is low. So now we're looking at 99214 E&M code, visits lasting 30 to 39 minutes. Now we're looking at moderate complexity. A patient might have one chronic condition, but there's an exacerbation. So maybe their hypertension is not controlled. They may have an acute complicated injury like an acute migraine that requires more intensive treatment. And then there's moderate risk involved in the decision-making process. So you're prescribing a brand new medication that's going to require ongoing monitoring, maybe even considering the need for some form of a minor surgical option. So now we're at that moderate level of decision making, and this is where the reimbursement increases. And this is where, again, you're having to make sure that you understand the difference in your codes. So the 99215 is the highest level of complexity that we're going to use in an E&M visit for an established patient. That's where our visit lasts between 40 to 54 minutes. This is appropriate when a patient's condition is severe or complicated, such as a chronic condition with a severe exacerbation. So unstable chest pain, you're administering or ordering that nitroglycerin, you might be having to call the squad, you're putting on oxygen on the patient inside of the medical practice. The treatment decisions here carry very high risk, including hospitalization or major surgery. and extensive data will be reviewed, including mini labs or consultations. Maybe you're collaborating with other providers, or even, again, sending that patient to the emergency room and getting them stabilized as quick as possible. So the potential risk with this patient is high, the complexity is high, and so therefore the reimbursement is higher. So let's talk about some of those modifiers and when to use them, why to use them, and then let's look at some examples of modifiers. So when I first started my practice, modifiers actually cost me a lot of money, or should I say not using modifiers cost me a lot of money. And then in addition to that, and the reason why modifiers are so important to understand is because not only is not using a modifier a problem, but simply inverting two letters when you use a modifier on your claim can again cost you the actual cost of the visit. So you may not be reimbursed for an entire visit, so you're rendering services for complete and total free while you're paying to continue to make your practice run. So I'm sure you can see that this is a major issue. So understanding modifiers is massively important as it pertains to billing. So the first thing we're looking at is a 25 modifier. So this is a significant and separately identifiable E&M service by the same physician, or in your case, nurse practitioner, on the same day. So for example, if a patient needs to come in, they have for maybe an exacerbation of their COPD. So they come in, you're making tweaks to medications. Maybe you're billing that out as a 99214. And then while they're there, you need to give them an injection of, say, a steroid. So you're going to use 99214 and add a 25 modifier onto that. And that is telling the insurance company that, yes, you did an office visit, you did an E&M service, but separately and on that same day, you also administered an injection. So it's very important that you use the modifier, because if you don't, they're likely not going to pay that second code. So the insurance company is going to reimburse you for your 99214, but then not pay you anything on that injection. And that injection took you time. That injection took you the knowledge of knowing how to administer it, and so on and so forth. So you need to make sure that you're getting this reimbursement thing correct. Next, we have an SA modifier. This is one that is going to be your best friend, because an SA modifier is used when a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant provides a service, particularly when billing Medicare and Medicaid. So you're going to definitely want to make sure that you add on this modifier. Again, countless of literal thousands of dollars were lost when I started my practice because I had no clue what I was doing. And so my goal here on the channel is to help you have a clue as to what you're doing and prevent making those mistakes, so you can start making that revenue right from the very beginning. So the purpose of the SA modifier is to identify that a specific service was performed by a nurse practitioner or PA, ensuring that it is correctly reimbursed under the appropriate provider type. So you don't want to bill out as though you're a physician, unless, of course, your collaborating physician works in your practice with you and they are physically present, and you are doing that incent to billing that I discussed previously. So nurse practitioners, again, remember, make 85% of the allowable amount of money that is listed on the fee schedule. So if you can do incent to billing and you meet all of the qualifications for that, then that is a game changer for your practice. Otherwise, make sure that you use this SA modifier so you do not risk getting your claim rejected and or not paid out in a timely fashion, which again directly impacts and affects your bottom line. So that is the SA modifier. Next, we have the modifier 59 or 59. So this is a distinct procedural service. So you use a 59 modifier to indicate that two procedures are distinct and separate from one another. That is the key, that you completed two totally different tasks, and in this case we're talking about procedures, on the same exact day, because again, insurance will pay one and deny the other if the modifier is not present. So this modifier is used to bypass the National Correct Coding Initiative edits, which are used to prevent improper coding. So a provider performs two different procedures on the same day and there's no overlap. That's when we're going to use a modifier 59. It would be added to one of those procedure codes to indicate that the procedures are separate but should be reimbursed individually. So this is just yet another modifier that I wanted you guys to be aware of that exists. Okay, so that GT modifier is specifically used for telehealth visits. This is when you're using audio and video communication in real time. So again, telehealth, telemedicine visits where the provider and the patient are seeing each other and hearing each other, you're going to want to make sure that you use a GT modifier. And this is most of the time I have found in my practice used for the Department of Medicaid claims when you are billing out a telehealth visit for a patient who has a commercial insurance plan. That is a totally different modifier, but understanding the use of the modifier GT is very, very important. And I also want to mention that let's pretend we have a patient who has Medicaid. We're going to bill out an SA modifier. So on your claim, it would look like 99213 for your office visit, your E&M code. Then it would look like SA modifier being listed first because you're a nurse practitioner rendering the service, and then in the second place, GT for it being a telehealth. So as you see on the screen now, we're looking at the GT and 95 modifier. Both of those are used for telehealth or telemedicine visits, but 95 is most generally used for those commercial insurance plans. So both of them signify the same thing. However, each insurance company requires the use of different modifiers. So again, this is why understanding how to bill and code correctly is super, super important. So if you want more help, if this video has been helpful, if you want me to go over the new patient codes and kind of break those down for you, if you have any other private practice questions, comment those below. And if you would like to talk, I can help you. I can take my time for an extremely small amount of money, and I can set it aside specifically with your name on it. So there's a link underneath this video, and if you want me to help you tack down your niche, generate business ideas, help you to really just organize so that you can launch that private practice of your dreams and truly break free from the 9 to 5 grind and thrive in 2025 and moving forward, then I am here for you. So check the description box below. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel because I have tons of free content coming, tons of videos where I'm breaking down those complex thoughts and things that people struggle with and really just help you. My goal here is to truly help you succeed and watch you thrive in your very own private medical practice. So subscribe to the channel, give this video a big thumbs up, and comment below. It really, really does help the YouTube algorithm to push this video out in front of other nurse practitioners who are struggling and trying to make decisions very much similar to the ones that you might be trying to make. So thanks so much for watching this video. I truly hope that it was helpful, and I will see you again next week for another how to start your own private practice video.